I never thought a simple parking spot could lead to a full-blown HOA war. But that's exactly how it started. It was a quiet Saturday morning when I first realized that Karen, the self-appointed queen of the homeowners association, had decided I was a threat to her little kingdom. She wasn't just any HOA member, she was the type who thrived on control. Walking around with a clipboard and a notebook, judging everyone's lawn, mailbox, and yes, even where people parked. At first, I thought I could ignore her, that she was just one of those people who liked to feel important. But I quickly learned that underestimating Karen was a dangerous mistake. It all began innocuously enough. I had parked my car in my own driveway, leaving it slightly over the invisible line that Karen considered her territory. The line might as well have been drawn in invisible ink because no one else seemed to notice it. And certainly, there had never been a complaint before. But to Karen, it was a violation of the sacred HOA code, and she treated it as if I had committed a felony. I saw her watching from across the street, arms crossed, her face twisted in that familiar mix of anger and superiority that she always carried. That stare alone could make anyone's skin crawl. Then came the notes. At first, they were subtle, a polite reminder taped to my windshield. But within a week, they escalated into full-blown warnings. Please move your vehicle or face consequences, one note said, and another declared. HOA regulations must be followed at all times. I knew the HOA had rules, but the way Karen enforced them made it personal. It wasn't about community standards. It was about power, and she wanted to make sure I felt it. Every neighbor seemed to tiptoe around her, fearful of becoming the next target. But I wasn't going to back down so easily. I tried reasoning with her, explaining that my car was legally parked and that I wasn't breaking any official HOA rules. But Karen wasn't interested in facts. She was interested in making me squirm. She sent emails, left voicemails, and even approached me in the neighborhood, loudly announcing to anyone within earshot that I was a menace to the community. People walked by, pretending not to notice, while she enjoyed every second of it. I began to realize that this wasn't just about parking, it was about her need to control everything. And she had chosen me as her next victim. By the end of that week, the tension had escalated so much that even small tasks, like getting the mail or taking out the trash, felt like acts of defiance. I felt trapped in my own home, constantly on edge, never knowing what she would do next. The battle lines were drawn, and the seemingly peaceful neighborhood had transformed into a battleground where one person's obsession with rules clashed with my right to live without harassment. Little did Karen know, her obsession with my car was about to backfire in a way she could never have imagined. One morning, I woke up to a shock that made my blood run cold. My car was gone. Completely gone. I ran outside, expecting to see it parked in the driveway where it had always been. But instead, there was nothing but empty asphalt. At first, I thought maybe I had just misplaced it, some odd, half-asleep confusion, but the growing knot in my stomach told me otherwise. And then I saw it. A bright orange warning sign nailed to the lawn, with Karen's familiar scrawl declaring that my vehicle had been towed for violation of HOA parking regulations. I could hardly believe it. Towed my car for a minor parking oversight that had never been officially enforced before. I called the towing company, and after a brief, frustrating hold, they confirmed it. Yes, my car had been picked up and was sitting in their impound lot. And yes, I would have to pay a hefty fee to retrieve it. I felt a surge of disbelief and fury. This wasn't just about a car. This was about Karen flexing her power in the most extreme way possible. It was as if she had been waiting for this moment, planning it down to the last detail, just to make me feel helpless. The walk to the impound lot felt like a journey into enemy territory. Every step I took, I imagined Karen's smug face watching from her window, enjoying the chaos she had caused. When I arrived at the lot, the sight of my car behind the chain-link fence was both relieving and maddening. It was intact, but it was imprisoned, held hostage because of someone else's obsession with rules. I took a deep breath and prepared myself for the negotiations, trying to keep my anger in check while filling out forms and paying fees that I knew were unnecessary. But the real frustration came after the paperwork. There was no apology, no acknowledgement that the towing had been extreme or possibly unjust. It was purely transactional. My money for my freedom. And when it hit me, the car wasn't the real problem. Karen wasn't satisfied with taking the vehicle. She wanted to make me feel powerless, humiliated, like a resident who had broken some sacred law. Her victory wasn't in moving my car. It was in watching me scramble, in creating fear and uncertainty where there had been none before. Back home, I tried to act normal, but the tension lingered. Every glance at the empty driveway reminded me of the confrontation that had taken place without me even knowing. I realized then that this wasn't just a one-off incident. It was a warning. Karen had made it clear that she would stop at nothing to assert control. And the stakes had suddenly risen. Parking spots, HOA regulations, and even my daily routines were now battlegrounds in a war I hadn't expected to fight, but one I was determined to win. By the end of the day, as I parked my car back in the driveway, I made a silent promise to myself. Karen may have won the first round, but the next move would be mine. And when it came, it would be unlike anything she could have imagined. Karen didn't know what was coming next, and she was about to regret messing with me. After the towing incident, I realized that simply obeying the rules or trying to reason with her would get me nowhere. Karen thrived on control, and every attempt to comply or apologize only fueled her obsession with power. I needed a plan, something that would not only protect my car but also send a clear message that I wasn't going to be bullied. It was time to escalate. Carefully, strategically, and with just the right amount of surprise. I started small, gathering information. I watched her routines, noting the hours she patrolled the neighborhood, the way she liked to inspect lawns, mailboxes, and driveways. I spoke to neighbors discreetly, learning about her tendencies, her weaknesses, and how she reacted when things didn't go her way. Every piece of knowledge was a small weapon in my arsenal, something I could use to level the playing field. I realized that if I wanted to end this harassment, I couldn't fight her with words alone. I needed a spectacle that she couldn't ignore or control. As the days passed, the tension in the neighborhood grew palpable. Karen's sharp eyes seemed to be everywhere, and every minor action I took felt scrutinized. But I remained calm on the surface, playing the role of the obedient resident, while secretly preparing for the ultimate showdown. I began making subtle changes. My car parked slightly differently. My schedule adjusted to coincide with her inspections, and hints dropped to let her know that I wasn't intimidated. It was psychological warfare, a slow burn to unnerve her without giving away my full hand. Meanwhile, I enlisted the help of a few trusted friends who were in on the plan. They were just as eager to see Karen's reign of terror disrupted, and together we brainstormed ideas that would catch her completely off guard. We laughed at some of the more outrageous possibilities, but even in the humor, there was a kernel of truth. Whatever we did had to be bold, public, and undeniable. Karen had thrived on control because she believed no one could outmaneuver her, and that belief was about to be shattered. By the end of the week, the stage was set. Every piece of the puzzle was in place, from the timing of her neighborhood walks to the subtle hints that suggested something unusual was about to happen. Karen's smug confidence had not wavered. If anything, it had grown. That was her biggest mistake. I could practically see the gears turning in her head, imagining herself victorious once again, while I silently prepared for a moment she would never forget. Little did she know, the next chapter in this battle wouldn't just embarrass her, it would leave the entire neighborhood talking for weeks. As I stood by my car that evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a surge of anticipation. The first skirmish had been won, but the war was far from over. The ultimate confrontation was coming, and when it arrived, Karen wouldn't have a clue what hit her. It was only a matter of time before the tables turned. And the quiet, obedient resident she thought she knew would reveal just how unpredictable and unstoppable I could be. Then, out of nowhere, a 25-ton tank rolled into the neighborhood and Karen's face went pale. I had spent days planning, coordinating, and waiting for the perfect moment. And this was it. The neighborhood had grown accustomed to Karen's constant scrutiny, her sharp eyes, and her relentless patrols. But nothing could have prepared her for this. I had arranged for the tank to be delivered legally. Of course, with the proper permits, and it wasn't just a vehicle. It was a statement. The ground trembled slightly
This is
as the
not
massive
acceptable.
machine rolled down the street.
You need to fix this
Metallic
now.
sheen glinting in the sunlight, and the sound alone made Karen freeze in place, her clipboard dropping to the sidewalk. Neighbors peeked out their windows, phones in hand, capturing the surreal moment. The once quiet cul-de-sac had transformed into a scene that looked like it had been ripped from a movie. Karen, normally so composed in her self-appointed role as neighborhood enforcer, was now flustered, muttering to herself and waving her hands as if she could magically stop the approaching tank. Every inch of her body language screamed panic. Her usual confidence evaporated into pure terror. I watched from a distance, heart pounding with excitement, knowing that this was the turning point. The tank didn't need to move fast. Its presence alone was enough to command attention. Its treads left impressions in the pavement, a physical reminder of the sheer scale of what had arrived. I made sure that it was parked strategically, right across from Karen's house, blocking her view and her access to the street she so dearly controlled. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Karen's power, built on fear and petty rules, was now dwarfed by something far larger, louder, and unstoppable. Karen attempted to regain control, shouting orders as if someone would obey, waving frantically at neighbors, and pointing at the machine like she could summon it away. But her usual theatrics fell flat. No one was listening. No one was intimidated. And most importantly, I wasn't scared. I had orchestrated this perfectly, and the sight of her panic was strangely satisfying. The tank wasn't dangerous. It didn't need to be. Its arrival had already achieved the effect I had been waiting for. Karen's dominance crumbling before everyone's eyes. For several long minutes, she continued to sputter, pacing, gesturing, and shaking her head in disbelief. Neighbors whispered among themselves, some chuckling quietly, some shaking their heads at the absurdity, but all watching as Karen faced the consequences of her obsession. I could see it in her eyes, the realization that her reign of terror was over, that her attempts to control everyone around her had finally backfired spectacularly. The tank, a colossal and unexpected force, had shifted the balance entirely, and Karen had no choice but to accept it. As I stood there, watching the scene unfold, I felt a mix of relief and triumph. The escalation had worked perfectly. The absurdity, the drama, and the shock value had combined into a moment Karen would never forget. My car, my driveway, and my sanity were safe once again, and the neighborhood had witnessed firsthand that sometimes the only way to fight a petty dictator is with an equally unexpected show of power, one that they could never have anticipated. Karen's loss of control was complete, and for the first time in weeks, I could breathe easy knowing that the tables had finally turned. With Karen finally silenced, I could finally enjoy my parking spot and my car safely back. The arrival of the tank had been more than just a dramatic statement. It had been a turning point. For weeks, Karen had wielded her authority like a weapon, making everyone in the neighborhood feel on edge, especially me. But now, the balance had shifted. Her carefully constructed empire of intimidation had crumbled, and the relief I felt was almost tangible. I parked my car in the driveway, right where it belonged, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I didn't glance over my shoulder. The neighborhood had taken notice. 2 neighbors came out of their houses slowly, some with wide smiles, others shaking their heads in disbelief at what had unfolded. The whispers and quiet laughter spread through the streets, a mix of awe and amusement at the sheer audacity of the plan. Karen, who had once strutted around like a queen bee, was now reduced to a flustered, mumbling figure, trying to maintain some shred of dignity. Every glance she gave me was a mixture of anger, embarrassment, and disbelief, as if she couldn't comprehend how the tables had turned so completely. Over the next few days, things began to settle. Karen avoided confrontation whenever possible, retreating to her house and muttering under her breath. She no longer patrolled the streets with the same intensity, and neighbors who had been silent before started reclaiming small freedoms. Children played on the sidewalks. People left their cars in their driveways without fear, and the sense of oppression that had hung over the neighborhood for weeks began to lift. The HOA meetings continued. Of course, but Karen's influence had waned dramatically. No one dared challenge me after what had happened. And I realized just how powerful a well-timed ball move could be. For me, the victory wasn't just about the car or the driveway, it was about reclaiming peace of mind and proving that standing up to petty tyranny could have real consequences. I had learned that sometimes the only way to deal with someone who thrives on fear and control is to think bigger, bolder, and in a way they never see coming. The tank had been symbolic, theatrical, and absolutely necessary. It had sent a clear message that I wouldn't be intimidated, and it had restored a sense of order in my life. Even now, months later, the story of that day circulates quietly among neighbors. Karen is no longer the intimidating force she once was, and my driveway has become a symbol of resilience. I often smile when I think about how a situation that started with a simple parking dispute escalated into something so ridiculous, yet so effective. It serves as a reminder that sometimes fighting back with creativity and confidence, not anger, can change everything. And most importantly, it shows that no matter how controlling or overbearing someone may be, there's always a way to reclaim your space, your peace, and yes, your car. Hey guys, if you loved this epic HOA Karen vs Tank revenge story, smash that like button. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss more satisfying Karen meltdowns, petty revenge, and HOA horror stories. Drop a comment below. What's your worst Karen or HOA experience? Back and check out these 2 videos on screen right now. More insane revenge and Karen freakouts. See you in the next one. Peace out.